average that way. People interested in it can have a place to come and do happy, to network, to meet each other, to empower each other, to see each other as a real team, to feel heard, to feel safe, to feel appreciated. All of my clothes got my remote and what it had that, right? So, clothes on this front, y'all heard that. Black coffee is my flavor of love. It was birthed out the need for the community to have space for coffee, culture, and business. It's a place for community leaders and members of families to facilitate change, network, and exchange ideas to help build a stronger and more vibrant community. That's what the 20 Girls program is about, right? Building each other up, building ourselves up as individuals, and give back to each other, right? So, Black Coffee first opened in November 2022. Started off here in this one section location we had two. This is our first location. It actually started off with just a little kiosk, a little cart over here in the lobby area. This is the water for the organization. One little cart and has some stop and go stations. And then it officially opened.
Podcast show as we explore the exciting worlds of AI, XR, and of course, STEM and STEAM. Do not miss out. Skill up with AI tools in virtual workshops live. Tap in at 9 p.m. every Friday for XR Showcase, hosted by Zohund, the CTE, the artist. Also, we will have special guest Nicole Hayden of 50/50 Mentoring Collabrative, Inc. And to close, we got co-founder Charles Burns III of Tech at Nite, SCA, XRT trainer, and blockchain specialist. Here are the AI movers. Join us on the Amx Podcast Show as we explore the exciting worlds of AI, XR, and of course, STEM and STEAM. Do not.
It's a little more children environment. I want to, they have a lot of business services in there. It's a lot of business, so it's a little more business environment. You got everyone coming in chill. So we're going to do location environment. So our motto is for coffee, culture, and business. And I was saying, this is just about having coffee. Not everybody likes coffee. We appeal to a large, diverse population of people. So we have smoothies, we have teas, we have lemonade. Again, of course, we have our full breakfast and lunch menu. And also it's just a place to network, to have fun, to meet, to talk, to get outside, and to feel like you are a part of something. And to know that this world appreciates you, this world sees you, this world wants to hear from you, and this is a space where you can come and meet yourself and meet others. So, what I first want to talk about is my day-to-day as a barista. So this is my first time ever being a barista, and I know for me personally, like when you think about being a barista, like Starbucks, things like that, it's so overwhelming, and it's such a hard job to learn, how you can learn all these orders, you learn how to make drinks, get them all out fast. But I love y'all. I'm so true. I'm so honest. Like, if any of y'all ever want to think about being a barista after this, go for it. Because so much influence.
Like, define that barista.
So, a barista is the person who is in charge of preparing and serving any kind of coffee-related beverage. So, as a barista, my day-to-day tasks include, of course, taking coffee orders in at our location as well, food orders. A lot of cafes will for the barista is often charging the food as well as the coffee orders. Then I prepare the drinks. So I'm just into each drink, different types of coffee drinks and how those are prepared. Prepare the drinks. That also comes with sometimes not everyone like everything standard. So we try to keep everything consistent, make it all the same, sell one common taste, one common flavor, one common experience. But of course, everybody who comes from different walks of life, we all have different experiences. So what I might call sweet, you might call bitter. What I might call bitter, you might call sweet. So of course, being a barista, it comes with the customer service aspect. It's listening to your customer, respecting their difference, and if it's not the same thing you hold, you gotta respect it and make adjustments where adjustments need to be made. So sometimes if I make a coffee standard how we would make it, somebody might tell me it's too sweet. So I have to remake it and make it a little less sweet, a little less pumps of syrup, maybe more sweet, add some more sugar. So with the barista, you kind of have that a lot, that kind of back and forth of, is that okay for you? How can I adjust it? Do we need to do anything different, or do I need to remake this for you completely? Now, it's not a lot of that. Most people, I would say, at least have Black coffee, are very kind, very understanding, appreciative, pretty easygoing, but you will experience that. It doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing. It just means that, again, everybody comes from different walks of life, with different experiences, different flavor profiles, we appeal to our customer always. Second thing that I have to do, so other than preparing and making the drinks, a big part of being a barista is making sure that everything is dated and up to date. So like with our milks, we have to keep our milk stocked in the refrigerator. Of course, with milk expires. So any milk that's past expiration, we gotta make sure we're checking our milks daily, getting rid of that milk, stocking our new milk, make sure nobody gets sick or anything like that. Our teas, our lemonades, we all have to make sure we put a date on them. They're going to be used within 3 to 5 days. So once that time is up, we gotta know when to replace it, when to change it, when to make new. Another thing is keeping everything stocked. So like here you'll see I have my syrup shelf. Every single day, every single night, multiple times throughout the day, we're cleaning the syrup bottles. We gotta make sure we keep them stocked. Our cups, everything has to be stocked. Our coffee beans, we have to refill those. So stocking and making sure that your area is prepped and clean is also a very big portion of the job. One of the things we have to be very especially important about is cross-contamination when it comes to allergies. A lot of people have different allergies to milk. I know you've heard lactose intolerance before, probably, which is when people can't have dairy milk. A lot of times people can't have like almond, they can't have oat. So when it comes to the milks as a barista, you always want to make sure that you're keeping all of your products clean and not using, like, let's say if I use a spoon to make somebody's coffee that has 2% milk. I can't go and use that same spoon to make a coffee that has oat milk, because that person might be allergic to lactose. Does that make sense? And so, that's one of the biggest pieces of advice with everything, is make sure everything is clean, and you're using new things for each order. So starting with getting into more of the details about making the coffee drinks itself. So when it comes to making coffee, one of the biggest things that you're going to hear in the coffee industry is coffee versus espresso. So you'll hear people say, can I get a coffee or can I get a latte? So when we're talking about coffee is just beans, brewed. The brewing process is slower, it takes longer, it's more of a consistency in coffee. That's just a regular drip coffee, okay? When you're talking about espresso is more stronger concentration of caffeine. So what makes it different is the brewing process. So when we're using our espresso beans, it's pressure. Espresso is all about making sure that you have a fine grind. So these beans that you're looking at over here, these are whole beans, whole coffee beans. So right now, when they're in that little filter right here, these whole coffee beans, they're going to go through this machine, and this is a grinder. And so when I push on this, like you'll see, it's coming out ground. So with the espresso, it has to be a certain grind, a very fine grind with espresso. And basically the reason for that is the finer the grind, we do something that's called tamping, which is where you take your coffee. So this right here, this is called a portafilter. Okay, so the portafilter is what we load our coffee beans into. So the steps of making an espresso drink, which would be a latte. A latte just means espresso with milk. So a latte can be hot or it can be iced. If you're doing a hot latte, you're gonna have milk that is sweet, hot. If you're doing the iced latte, it's just cold. So espresso plus milk equals latte. Now coffee, again, coffee and espresso different. So coffee is just regular coffee. Espresso has been espresso specifically because again, it's gonna be a finer grind. I'm gonna show you why. So first what you do when you're making a latte or any kind of espresso drink, you're gonna take your portafilter. You always want to make sure that it's clean, it's been wiped thoroughly through. Then you're going to come over here and you're going to get ground beans. So when it comes to making espresso, now a lot of times if you're in like a cafe like this, if you're working, the settings will already be what's called dialed in, which means basically they're adjusted for the coffee to be the exact grind that you need, so that it pulls the espresso shot the way that you need it to be pulled. But if you're at home, a good rule of consistency that they'll tell you is a 2-to-1 ratio. So you always want to measure out about 18 grams of espresso beans. So if you have 18 grams going in, you want 36 grams out, 2-to-1. So 18 grams in, 36 grams out. Does that make sense? Okay. But like for here, most places, it's already going to measure out 18 grams for you. So that's what mine does. So I take my, and I'm filling it up. machine to fill it up. And so as you can see, I just have my coffee grind, and here these are called the grinds. So from the bean, it goes to the grind. Anytime it's coming through, getting broken up like this, now it's a grind, coffee grind, okay? So, our next step in our process, now we don't have this tool here at this location currently, but there is a tool that's called a WDT tool. That means weight distribution tool. And what that is if you see like here, it's not evenly dispersed, the coffee has parts of it are in clumps, parts of it are more finely spread out, it's not even. So what the weight distribution tool does is it's a little tool that kind of looks like a cone. It has little like cone-like pieces at the end, and you just put it in here and you stir it up. And basically what it does is it disperses or gets rid of any clumps that might be in your coffee. That way we move on to the next step, which is called tamping. It's more even. So with the tamp, this is a tamp. Right? It's kind of like a stamp, that's it. Okay, and so what you do is after you get your coffee grinds, you call it a mat, you take your tamping device, so again, pull your coffee beans, coffee grinds. You got your grinds. Use your weight distribution tool, if applicable, if you have one. Next, when you're getting the actual espresso shot, it's called cooling a shot. So when the espresso is coming out of the machine into your cup, that's called cooling your shot. Okay? So when you pull your espresso shot, it's important to make sure that you have this evenly distributed surface with the weight evenly distributed, all the clumps dispersed. That way your shot is going to come through fully and properly, because what's happening is when you're pulling your espresso shot, you have water. Water is being filtered through this cup, right? All these coffee grinds, water is being filtered through there to pull out the espresso. So if you have clumps, sections that are more clumpy than the other, it's not going to pull through evenly, which means your espresso shot might be too bitter, it might be too watery, it might be salty, it's not going to be creamy and smooth like you want a good espresso to be. So that's the importance of tamping. After you tamp down your coffee grinds, you always want to make sure you give it a little light, so at the top and on the sides right here. Okay? And that's just to make sure that whenever I put it into my espresso machine, I'm not getting the machine clogged up. Okay? So our next step, once we get again, so start on step number 1, get your coffee beans, grind them. 2-to-1 ratio. You have 18 grams in, you want 36 grams out. Next, use your weigh. You have 18 grams in, you want 36 grams out. Next, use your weight distribution tool, if applicable, to make sure all clumps are dispersed. Give it a nice even tamp to make sure your pressure is nice and good. Then you're going to go ahead and attach it here to your espresso machine. Now everyone is different of how you attach the actual porta filter, but most of them are similar in the fact that you're going to line it up with this little hole, and it's kind of hard for y'all to see if you normally can. You just line it up and then twist it. And when I'm pulling, you see it's in there tight. Okay? So now that I have my porta filter loaded, these right here, these are my shot glasses. Okay, so we use the word shot when we produce the talk too, which is shot, not alcohol, shot coffee. Okay, so these are how your shot glasses for coffee. So we're gonna load those under here. And then this also again depends on the espresso machine that you're using, is how you actually press the start button or pull your shot. For ours, we just have a flip switch. So I'm gonna flip my switch. Now, one thing to note is that a lot of espresso machines don't have an automatic stop. So I have to watch this. Now, if you see these two pictures right here, half of this picture is one shot of espresso. So when we're doing all of our coffee drinks here at Blak Coffee, they're made with 2 shots of espresso. So both of these pictures need to be filled to halfway mark.
Why can't you fill it all the way up to make 2 shots?
You can, it's just the way that it's distributed, like I was talking about how the water is distributed. If you see right here, it comes through on 2 different sides. So we just use 2 different shot glasses. So a lot of times people will just use like 1 glass, and you can measure it out that way. If you use 1 cup though, usually people will have a scale underneath their cup. That way they can see, oh, this is 36 grams. Let me stop the espresso. You can remember I said, if you're weighing it out, you want 18 grams of espresso in, so you want 36 grams out. With this right here, it's like an eye roll. Oh, I know it's halfway, so that's about 36. But if I just use one solo cup, I'll need a weight, like a measuring scale underneath to make sure it's 36 grams. It's not going to get as easy as a hot bar. Does that make sense? But it doesn't. Whichever one you prefer. It's just the way that it's described and it's easier to pass here. So then we're going to load this in. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull my shot. So again, I'm watching to see. Once it gets about halfway, I'm going to stop it. Now, if you all want to come closer, I'm going to show you. So, if you see this creamy layer on top, that creamy layer, that's called creme, okay? Creme, which means cream. Creme, okay? And so that is what you want to look for with a good espresso shot. Has a good layer of creme like that on top. If it doesn't have that, it's probably either over-extracted, which means it's been cooled for too much time, or it's under-extracted, which means it hasn't been cooled long enough. Okay? So you always want to make sure you got that nice little creme on top. This right here, that's a single shot of espresso. Okay? So some people do order this, and this is just going to give you a strong, sharp caffeine. Okay? Just black, no flavor. Now, what makes it a latte from the espresso? So now that we have our singular espresso shot, I just equal espresso with milk. So, if I were to make a hot latte, the steps are always going to be to pull your espresso first, okay? So once I got my espresso shot, I'm going to pour in my cup. Step number 2 is you always want to ask when you're taking orders if you want any flavor. Okay? If they say, yes, I want French vanilla latte. After I got my espresso in my cup, I'm going to come over to my syrups. Now we have a bunch of different coffee syrups here. Again, you guys make sure they're all labeled and kept separate to make sure there's no cross contamination. Let's say they want vanilla. Each cup size and each coffee place that you have is going to have a standard amount of coffee pumps that you put in it, okay? So for us here at Blak Coffee, it's 3, 4, 6. So that's a rule of thumb for me. I know that if I'm making a 12-ounce drink, it's going to have 3 pumps of syrup. If I'm making a 16-ounce drink, it's going to have 4 pumps of syrup. If I'm making a 20-ounce drink, it's going to have 6 pumps of syrup. So that makes it easy for you as the barista to know that no matter what changes in the drink, no matter what the flavor is, it's going to have 3 pumps. That makes sense? You have a question on that? No, I'll work on that. Okay. So yes. So again, each place is going to have different amount of pumps that's standard for how much you put in, so you just follow that. So again, this is the 12-ounce cup right here. So now that I got my espresso, I'm going to add my flavor. So since this is 12, I'm going to add my French vanilla. Okay. Espresso with flavoring. Next step is going to be a mix. Spoon, just give that a good mix. And this is going to make sure to incorporate that flavor profile into your espresso. Okay, so now that we have our espresso, we have our flavoring. What we're going to do, and I'll take one volunteer. Anybody wants to volunteer? Okay.
I'll do a volunteer.
Okay, what we're going to do, we're steaming milk. So steaming milk is a whole separate process. It's one of probably the hardest things that you'll hear people say to get down. The thing about being a barista, I'm telling you, is once you have like that basic rule of thumb down, how the place that you work at and each different amount of cup, it's just changed this. The difference in all the different coffee drinks is really just the milk. Of course, when you're talking about coffee versus espresso, that's differentiation. But any kind of drink with espresso, latte, cappuccino, the thing that differs is the milk. Okay? So when we're talking about a latte is going to be steamed milk. Okay? It's not going to have a lot of foam. The difference between a latte and a cappuccino is a latte has a lot of foam. Or I'm sorry, a cappuccino has a lot of foam. So let me draw this out for you real quick. So like, if we have a cup, if I have a cup, so this is cup A. This is going to be my espresso, right? E for espresso. My milk, I'm going to fill my milk up to this line. Let's just milk, okay? The difference when I'm talking about a cappuccino, say this is my espresso. This is my steamed milk. All of this right here is going to be foam. You see the difference? Latte just has the steamed milk, which is hot milk, but the cappuccino has a layer of foam on top. And what makes the foam is to steam the milk longer. Okay? And I'm going to show you how to do that. We'll talk about that later. When we're talking about, let's say, some people will say they like a more dry cappuccino. Okay? What that means is, let's say, if it starts with your cappuccino, dry, less dry, more dry, that means they want more foam. So if you ever hear anybody say, I want a dry cappuccino, it means they want a lot of foam. If they say, I want a wet cappuccino, that means they want it more like a latte, less foam. Okay, but a cappuccino always has foam. Let's mix it with the latte. Okay? So, when it comes to steaming milk, you always want to start with your pitcher. Okay? Then you're going to get your milk of choice, and of course, when you take your order, you're going to ask what kind of milk would you like with your drink. Again, I recommend having regular 2% for whole milk. So
Almond milk.
Oat milk. So once you get your milk choice, you're gonna do this too. So typically, you want about 8 ounces of milk for the typical espresso drink that you're drinking, about 8 to 10 ounces. So we always use the rule of 8 here. So you all can see the inside here, it has measuring on the side, and so it'll tell me when it's 8 ounces. But if you don't have that at home, if you have a picture that looks like this, the best rule of thumb for you to use is, like, okay, that's enough milk, is right underneath that spout. You see where this spout is? Right underneath this, that's where you want to stop. You don't want to fill your milk up into this little, where the spout is, because once you're steaming it, it's going to make it bubble over faster, and you don't want that. So, you always want to make sure you're pouring your milk about halfway to about right underneath your spout. So, let you pour our milk for us in here. Hey. Our second step. So, now that we've got our milk, this right here, we were talking about earlier, this is called our steam wine. So this is what's going to introduce our steam into our milk. Okay, which is going to make it hot and give it the foam if we need to give it foam. So, when you're steaming milk, you always want to make sure that before you put your pitcher of milk up to the steam wine, you do what's called purging the steam wine. And what that is that's making sure that any water that might be in your steam wine is getting removed. Because if you put water into your milk will be watery, your coffee's going to be watery. You don't want that. So, how to purge your steam wine, which means you put in the water, you turn it off, not right here, you turn it all the way. Okay? That's just steam. It's not hot, it's hot when the first comes out, it's just steam. Okay? And so now that I have that, that's all my water's out, and then my steam wine's good. So next step, you're going to take your pitcher. Once you come up here, you come over there. That's right. Okay. And so, when you're steaming your milk, what you want to do is you want to pull your wand out. You want to come up so you can see that? I'm going to put my pitcher.
I do avoid cross-contamination with that.
So, good question. So, once I'm done with this, so the question was, how do I avoid cross-contamination with the steam wine? So, once we're done using our steam wine, after I steam my milk, right here I have a sanitization sink, so it has sandy water in it, cleaning water, and cleaning water. I always have a rag in here. I don't want to write that one on here. But what I do is I'll take the rag of sanitizer water, Now wipe it down and then purge it. In the sandy water, make sure that any bacteria or any other kind of contamination is free.
Okay.
And so, what you want to do, take your pitcher, take your steam line, where this little spout is, we're going to slide it right down into the spout. Does everybody see that? Okay, we're going to slide it straight down, right in that spout. Now, we're going to make sure that it's touching just the surface of the milk, okay? We're going to turn it, so again, pitcher, steam on, straight down. Now I'm going to turn it a little bit towards me, okay? Straight, turn towards me, and tilt. Okay, so again, pitcher, straight in right here, turn a little bit towards me, and tilt. And my steam one is touching just the surface of my milk. Now what I'm going to do is when I turn this on, this is called aerating. So aerating, that means all the air, right, all that steam is going into my milk. So that's what creates the foam. So when you're aerating milk, if you wanted a more foamy drink, like a cappuccino, you want to make sure that your steam water is touching the surface of the milk, because again, when it's touching the surface, that's aerating. So you want to keep it there for longer if you want more foam. If you want less foam, like a latte, you only want to let it aerate or touch the surface of the milk for about 3 to 5 seconds. Okay? After you have it aerated, so after you have enough air that you want, you lift your pitcher up. What that is, that's called incorporating your air bubble into your milk. So now all that air that I just made, all that's going to go into my milk. If I have my cappuccino where I've aerated it for longer, it's going to be more foamy. Once I put it up, it's putting the bubbles in there, so there's not so many bubbles all over your drink, but it's still good foam, okay? Once I put it up, it's putting the bubbles in. Does that make sense? Questions on that? So I'm going to let you try, and I'm going to let everybody have a turn, okay? So, I'm going to let you go first. You got it. This is one of the hardest parts, but practice makes perfect. Okay, so again, start with step number 1, alright? Good. Okay. So, can you see? You want a stool?
Yeah.
How do you see? Look, I do that too. I need the stool at first, but you get used to it. You got it? Okay. Now. Turn this all the way to your left. Don't be scared. Okay, turn. You got it. Turn. So now it's touching on this right here, right? 1, 2, 3, and go up. Right there. So now it's hot. Perfect. There you go.
Clap it up for Taylor.
So, as Taylor mentioned, how do you know when your milk is done? So, when I'm holding my milk right here and I'm letting it steam, I'm keeping my on the side of it, okay? Right here. My fingers, I'm holding right here on this glass, but they're not touching the actual pitcher because it does get very hot really fast and you can get burned. So, be very careful. I'm keeping my hand right here and I'm doing this. Touch my hand, touching off. Touch my hand, touching off. Once it's too hot for my hand to stay right here for 3 seconds, I know it's done. And you'll feel it quick before it burns. So, if I can't do this, the milk's done. Once it touches too hot, okay? Take your milk and burn, and it won't taste right. So, you always want to make sure that as soon as it's too hot to touch, you're taking your milk off, okay? Once you have your milk, now you can see how it went from the regular milk, now it has this foamy kind of look to it, like steam. So what you always want to do is you want to hold the glass, put your pitcher, nice and goes. Nice little thing, try not too hard, just jiggle. You see in there, you see how the bubbles are going down? You bang it like that, and then swirl it around. So after you steam your milk, you always want to hit it on the counter, give it a little swirl, and that makes sure that any little bubbles that might be in your milk are getting removed. Okay? So now, our next step, now that we have our espresso with our flavoring, we have our milk steam now. I'll just pour it in there. our espresso with the flavor.
Say that they're being a barista. You know what I'm saying?
And yeah, yours has a lot of foam because you let that area from them, so it's kind of more of a cappuccino texture, which is good example, so that's perfect. Perfect. So, like Taylor was saying, this has a lot of foam on top, so it's actually like a perfect cappuccino. You look at it, yup. So that nice foam layer right there, that's exactly what you want your cappuccino, okay? And the only other thing we would do is give it a bit of a mix. I got scared. Our cappuccino, put our lid on it, put our sleeve on it. These little things that you always see, these are called coffee sleeves. They're for anytime you get a hot drink. So I just want to put a sleeve on here so we don't get it. Okay. So, I'm going to let everybody, while we have the different stations going, I'm going to let y'all, if you want to turn with Stephen the Milk, I'm going to let y'all do that too. I'm going to keep going just to make sure everybody gets to take pictures. So, this was our hot latte. Okay? So, who would give me something when there's a latte? A latte. Add milk to espresso. I'm not even in one time. Just that. What you're saying is what makes a cappuccino a cappuccino. Yes, the foam makes a cappuccino cappuccino. So latte has very little foam, cappuccino has more. So if we're doing an iced latte, we're going to go back to square one. Okay? So we're going to get our espresso. Okay? Now, where you work, places will do this differently, and it's not a huge, it doesn't make a big difference as far as what you do first, as far as pouring your espresso over your ice, putting your flavoring first, putting your milk first. Some people in some restaurants or barista cafes prefer to do their ice, they'll get a cup, put their ice in it, put the espresso, their flavoring, their milk. Some people will do their ice, their milk, then their espresso. Some people will do their espresso and their milk, and then that ice last. Either way, what I have found and what I have learned in my own experience is that when you just pour the espresso straight over the ice, it kind of waters the espresso down. So what I've learned, what I like to do, is I'll get like a pitcher. Now, obviously, for the sake of this class, I'm just going to this one out just again. But again, it's another example. Anytime you have a new drink, new pitcher, okay? So, when I'm making an iced latte, I like to mix my espresso and my flavoring first in my milk and then pour it all over ice so that way it keeps the flavor of the espresso.
So real quick, what is the iced latte like? Do y'all drink iced lattes at like McDonald's to get those lattes or those coffee mugs? Do any of y'all drink those?